Hello YouTubers and welcome back to Go Figure Customs YouTube channel. I figured it's been a while since I've done a tutorial, so I'm going to do one for you today. Going to do another, I like to call them 2-minute tutorials. They usually run more than 2 minutes, but it's a catchy name and I like catchy names. So I'm going to show you something that you need to have in your painting arsenal if you don't already use it, and I'm guessing a lot of people do not. And that is Airbrush Flow Improver. I use the one made by Vallejo, which makes some really great paints. And I use it in my airbrush. I put 3 drops in with 3 drops of thinner and with just about any acrylic paint, and it will run like magic through your airbrush. I've noticed a huge difference in my airbrushing since I've started using Airbrush Flow Improver with my thinner. I'm fairly new to airbrushing, so all I use my airbrush right now is to lay down base coats. It saves me a shitload of time on painting. I figure give it a couple years of just doing that, and then I'll start tackling the really cool stuff that you can do with an airbrush. So, like I said, I'm pretty new to airbrushing. However, and if you use an airbrush and you're not using this stuff, you really need to. It will change and make a world of difference. You don't have an airbrush, you say? But you still need Airbrush Flow Improver. Remember how I've said that you don't want your paints too thick because they look like melted crayons on your customs? Well, instead of using water or paint thinner to thin out your paints before you apply them, use a drop of Airbrush Flow Improver. Get yourself a palette. I have a piece of wood on my customizing table, my customizing workspace, that I put a drop of Airbrush Flow Improver on, and then mix my paint to thin it out a little bit before I put it on. That's not the only thing that you can use it for. I'm a big fan of doing washes. I love the Citadel washes. They're great stuff, but it's a fairly limited range. Recently, they came out with a line paint called Contrast, which is like a thicker version of their washes. And I've had like mixed results with these. Some of them look pretty nice. Some of them, it just goes on too thick and it's just way too much. However, take a little bit of this and you mix it in 1 drop of Airbrush Flow Improver, and suddenly you have a beautiful, beautiful wash that you did not have before. And they make these in a wide range of colors. In fact, the red I just used on my Flying Scorpion custom, and they even make one for white. White is very hard to shade because you can use gray or black, but if you're not careful, it looks very dirty very quickly. So they make a white contrast. I've tried straight out of the bottle and it was just too much. I screwed up a custom on that one time. I had to repaint it. But took some of the white contrast and a little bit of Airbrush Flow Improver, thinned it out, and I used it on my female Ice Viper custom, and it worked fantastic. Pitfalls on the Airbrush Flow Improver: I would not necessarily recommend it in paint specifically designed for an airbrush if you are using an airbrush, because it is already pretty thin to begin with. Maybe just a drop. If you thin it out any more than it usually is, Citadel is really guilty of that. It just turns into a very, very thin, wet paint that does not cover very well, and you end up having to do another coat, and it splatters everywhere. So might not use it in paint specifically designed for an airbrush if you are using an airbrush. The other problem that I've noticed recently is if you have a real thin base coat. So I like to airbrush a base coat on when I'm doing faces. So I'll airbrush a flesh coat on and then do layers on that. I was trying to make a wash with some Airbrush Flow Improver, and my base coat was very, very thin, and it started taking off the base coat. So I had to repaint that. I think that was on my female Techno Viper that I had to redo the head on her. You can kind of see it. It looks like she's got a scar on her forehead. So there you go. It's a 2-minute tutorial on why you need Airbrush Flow Improver in your arsenal, even if you are not using an airbrush. It is a fantastic medium to help thin out your paints and to make them more versatile. So hopefully hopefully this video was helpful, and give this stuff a shot, and let me know in the comments below if it helped you or not. Also, you can get this stuff on Amazon. I don't remember how much it is, and your local gaming stores probably have this as well. It's not very expensive, and it lasts a long time. So again, hopefully you found that helpful, and thanks for watching.